Corey is the oldest of 4 siblings. He's a charming, funny, happy, popular, make everybody laugh, really fun to be around, extremely loyal and loving. Definitely the big brother vibe, you know. He was just a super well-loved, liked by everybody. People just kind of really wanted to be around him. He brought that good, happy vibe. He was such a good boy. He was such a good boy. We used to joke when they were little. His brother, you know, Brady, is only 18 months younger than him. And we thought Brady was going to give us a run for his money. He was a wild one. And Corey was such a good, calm boy. And he did really well in school. He was really well liked by everybody. He didn't get in any fights as a little kid, really. He never got in trouble at school. He never gave us, any grief, really. He's just a good boy. He did well in school as a little kid. He liked to participate in everything. He did all the sports. You know, he was a Boy Scout. He played soccer. He played t-ball, baseball. He wrestled. As soon as he got into wrestling, it was over for all the other sports. He was really good at wrestling, and he knew it, and he loved it. And so after wrestling season, he never played another sport. It was wrestling from there on out. Yeah, he found what he was good at and what he liked to do, and it kept him motivated, you know, to keep doing good in school. And as he got older, he kind of got... So when he was about to graduate 8th grade and go into high school, his grades weren't very good that year. So right off the bat, immediately going into high school, they had kind of decided he wasn't going to be able to do sports the first year. And that really brought things down for him because he didn't have that to work for anymore. He knew that no matter how hard he worked in school, he wasn't going to get to do sports. And that's kind of what kept him driven at that point. So there was a little more, you know, partying with friends and smoking pot and hanging out, and kind of didn't have that goal to work towards. He basically lost interest in school at that point, into high school. They made him start at a continuation part of the school instead of letting him go to the regular campus. So he kind of just felt pushed aside and well, you know, I guess this is the category that I fit in now. It definitely took away his motivation to stay doing what he was supposed to do in school, you know, and that's what kids really want to do in high school, is hang out with their friends and do what their friend group is doing. And if you get separated from your friend group because you didn't do well in 8th grade, so you're going to start in the, you know, continuation portion of the high school as a freshman with the bad kids, you know, is kind of how it looked. And you're not allowed to do sports the first year. He didn't have anything else to work for. He was ready to just do whatever he felt like. And that was hard. There was a lot of changes at home. I had 2 new babies as he was going into high school. And I think that I wasn't able to give him my full attention and time. At that time, it was really divided with all my kids. He smoked pot with his friends. He wasn't really into the drinking. He would still go to school. He would go hang out with his friends after school. He'd come home around the beginning of high school. He would, you know, I'd have to go chase him down. You know, I'd have to go knock on doors at his friend's house and tell him to come home. And, you know, we did all that for a while. He ended up switching high schools, and doing a little better in like the continuation school that he went to. He started a job. So I was waitressing at a local restaurant, and I got him started as a dishwasher there. And so that was a nice little time period where he was going to school and he was working and he was feeling pretty happy and pretty good about himself, you know. And he was doing all right in school at that time, but they let him know probably 3 months ahead of time that he wasn't going to have enough credits to graduate. And that kind of killed it for him because he was like, oh, well, so you're saying no matter how much I work towards this the rest of the school year, I'm not going to make it. So he decided, you know, I'm not going to do that. He felt like it was a lot of wasted effort, you know, at that point. And so there wasn't much to do at that point. He was 17. It was his senior year. And so school was probably pretty much done at that point. He didn't finish the rest of his senior year. I think he had like 2 months to go. After that, it was just kind of a lot of doing whatever he felt like doing, you know. He was running around. I think at that point, he might have started selling drugs. And he got, you know, a taste of like fast money. And I think that's really what just took him, you know, was just that high of getting that fast money. And, you know, like I said, he was so well-liked and so popular. It didn't matter what circle he was in, everybody really gravitated towards him. And so he had a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, like, just had a lot of people that liked him, and he had a lot of things going his way. However he wanted it, it was going his way, you know. I tried while he was still a juvenile to get him on some kind of formal juvenile probation. I reached out. He hadn't committed a crime, but I was reaching out for help because he was still a minor, and he needed to be accountable. He needed to check in with somebody, you know, and he wasn't doing that, you know. And at the time, they were like, you know, he has to commit a crime before he can be in the system. So we weren't able to go that route, and they weren't able to help us with anything. There was also a period of time where he went and lived with friends for a few months, like a family friend. He was doing good, staying out of trouble. He lived with like his cousins and his uncle for a little while. I would reach out, you know, to his family, extended family, and kind of ask for help. It's hard to know what to do. And, you know, when your kids don't want to listen and they just... He overdosed at a friend's house. He took a pill, like a fake pill, and his friends tried to wake him up, and he wouldn't wake up, and they called the ambulance and police, and they came and resuscitated him. And he was in the hospital. He was hospitalized. He had like the pneumonia aspiration. He had vomited so much when he came to that, you know, his lungs were in bad shape. And we went to the hospital, and, you know, he was okay. You know, he had made it through. It didn't have like as big of an impact on him as you would have thought it did. You know, it didn't scare him enough. It didn't scare him as much as it scared everybody else. And, upon leaving the hospital, his dad found him like a rehab center. And I think he took him, but he went and he checked in upon leaving the hospital. And, but he didn't stay. He called some friends to pick him up within I want to say within like 48 hours of being there. And so that was like his only time of like attempting to enter treatment. And he didn't stay. And nobody could make him. So I want to say after that is when he stopped going to school completely. And the next couple years were pretty rough. He got further into, I don't know, street crime, whatever was going on, whatever he was participating in. You know, he would get brought home by the cops occasionally. Crazy interactions. People would be pulling guns on him, you know, a lot of activity in the streets. He was doing a lot of stuff. I don't really know the extent of it, but, you know, just hanging with the wrong crowd of people, just living fast. He did take on a lot of responsibility, though. Like, as much as it seems like he was out living free and easy, doing everything, he was actually, like, he helped me a lot with the kids. He went to jail. He got some charges pressed on him. It was like a robbery type thing, so it was pretty serious. We got him a lawyer, and we're trying to, you know, make it through everything and do what we had to do. And at some point, he kind of just decided he didn't want to go with the program anymore. And I think he just was scared to go to prison or whatever was potentially going to happen, you know? And so he was supposed to turn himself in October of 2021. And he didn't. Well, actually, he went to turn himself in one day. And I sat in the parking lot and I watched him through the window. And I'm like, what's going on? They hadn't taken him back. And he sat there for over an hour and they were like, you can't turn yourself in without these papers. And he's like, what? So he had attempted to turn himself in and do what he was supposed to do. And they were like, you can't do it without these papers. And so as soon as I drove away, he called me from the lobby and said, Mom, come pick me up. They're not letting me turn myself in. I'm like, no way, this is crazy. Like, because I was so scared of what was going to happen to him out in the streets. You know, people were after him. It was just a bad scene, you know, and jail was the safest place at that time. And so anyways, I picked him up. They didn't want him. They wouldn't take him without this paperwork. And so he had decided, well, it's almost my birthday. I'm not going to turn myself in before my birthday. And it kind of just went on from there. Well, it was just never, and I'm telling him, you know, it's never going to be a good time. It's not, it's going to suck no matter what, you know. And so he prolonged it, and then he got arrested on Christmas. On Christmas Day, he got arrested, and I was like, oh, thank God, honestly, because I was so worried for his safety. And all you were hearing at the time was all these fentanyl deaths. And I knew he was doing drugs. And I was so scared. So he went to jail, and he was there for till the first week of February, and they just randomly let him out. They didn't give him, like, they just let him out. Like, his case was going to continue. I don't know if they didn't have room for him or what. But he didn't have a plan, and he didn't have a place to go, and it was just at the last minute. So he called and was like, they're letting me out of jail. And so he had a friend pick him up. I'm like, I just wanted to see you, you know. And he's like, well, I'm going to go with my friend, and he's, you know, going to help me get a job. And so he got out of jail, and he kind of just, I think, just went back to doing exactly what he was doing. And I didn't see him. I didn't hear from him. And so the weekend before he had a court date scheduled for March 7th. So in between, like, February 9th and March 7th, I guess. I think February 9th is about when he got out. he had that whole month where he was just kind of going wild and just doing whatever because in his mind, well, court's coming up and I'm going to go to jail. So he kind of gave himself that window to just do whatever he was doing, knowing that this was kind of his deadline. So I ended up going to Oregon the Saturday before he had court. And I had put it off, and I had came back because he got arrested, and we were moving, me and the kids. He was supposed to be in jail this whole time since October. So anyway, so I leave on this Saturday, and I didn't get to see him. I didn't get to see him before I left. He was just out doing his thing. And I had been calling him and begging him, please, regardless of what happens, go to court on Monday. We have to go to court. You have to get this out of the way. We got to get on with life. You can't keep living like this, And he was real unhappy with what he was doing at that point. He knew he wanted different. He wanted out of the drugs and wanted out of that life that he was living, And so we had a really good talk Sunday night. I was telling him, like, you have so much to look forward to. You're that popular guy in any crowd you're in. Not just these guys, level up and meet new great people. And you're still going to be the star because you're just that guy. You have that in you. You take it with you wherever you go. I said, you haven't got to buy a new car yet. You haven't got to do all these great things, Let's get through this hump and move on with life and do those great things. I got your back. I'm always going to have your back through all this. We'll get through it, And he's like, okay, I'm going to do it, And so the next morning, and he's been avoiding this for months. So now I'm calling first thing in the morning. I'm like, okay, well, you're up. I sent my friend to go pick him up to make sure somebody was giving him a ride. And so I'm keeping tabs on him. I'm calling him like every 15 minutes this morning on Monday, And so I'm calling him and I'm like, hey, did you got picked up? Okay, good. He's like, yeah, mom, relax. Like, I'm going to take a shower and get something to eat and then I'm going to go. I'm like, all right. When he said he was taking a shower and he was going to get ready, I called his probation officer and I said, Corey is going to court today. He's going to turn himself in. Please take him to jail. Please put him in a program. Do not let him walk out of that courthouse and go back to the streets. I cried to the probation officer and I told him, you guys let him out with no plan. He's addicted to drugs. He's never had treatment. He needs help. He wants help. He wants out of this lifestyle. That's why he's at court today. And so probation told me that, okay, if he shows up today, we'll recommend a treatment program rather than prison time. I call him at 1:00 and I'm like, hey, are you at the courthouse yet? And he's like, no, we're at the McDonald's drive-thru. And I freaked out. And I'm like, oh, my God, tell Evan, what is he thinking? Like, he has to have you at the courthouse. Like, you can't be messing around. You can't be late. And he laughs. He's like, Mom, don't get mad at him. It's my fault. I was hungry, and I made him stop so we could get some food. We're going right there. We're going straight to the courthouse. I'm like, all right. And so I call 12 minutes later. Because I'm like, he didn't call me to tell me he's there, And so I called, and it's just ringing and ringing. And I'm like, it shouldn't be ringing. He should be inside, so his ringer should be off. And so I called Evan, who gave him a ride. And I'm like, did you guys make it? Did he go inside? And he's like, yeah. No, yeah, we made it in time. And he went inside, but then he fell. And I'm like, what do you mean he fell? And he said, he collapsed. And they're working on him right now. And, I started screaming. And so he said that he didn't know what was going on, but the medics were working on him. And I was screaming to tell the medics to check him for drugs or an overdose. And so I called my dad and my son from somebody else's phone because I didn't want to hang up, and told them to get to the hospital, because I was 8 hours away. And so to have them go to the hospital to be with Corey. And at that point, they said they resuscitated him for a little while in the ambulance, and that his heart kept stopping. And I left where I was at in Oregon. I just started driving immediately, to get down here. And they shocked him. And I guess towards the last hour of his life, they did chest compressions by hand for a whole hour, trying to keep his heart beating. But he passed away. They couldn't save him. And I guess come to find out later, through the toxicology and everything, and them just investigating what happened, is that he took what he thought was a Xanax right before he went to court. Because he knew he was probably going to jail that day. And he just wanted to calm himself down, So his family all rushed, to be with him at the hospital. And his little brother was there with him. And his grandpa. And his father was coming from Idaho, and I was coming from Oregon. So neither one of us made it in time to see our boy before he passed. But he was... The thing I want people to know and remember, is that he was taking the first step to doing the right thing. He showed up, knowing that there was consequences, knowing that he was in trouble and he was going to have to face those consequences. But he wanted out of the life he was in. He wanted to do better. He knew there was better out there for him. And he didn't know. He did not know that was it. He didn't mean to take a fentanyl pill.